I just want to clarify. You are 100% certain that there are 1,000 plus Al-Qaeda trained fighters within the United States borders. Man, this stuff scares the shit out of me.
We have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now.
And they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly.
I just want to clarify. You are 100% certain that there are 1,000 plus Al-Qaeda trained fighters within the United States borders.
Well, Al-Qaeda says they trained and deployed 1,000 for this attack. First off, I think there's more than 1,000 Al-Qaeda members in the United States. But for the Homeland attack, that number is based on what Al-Qaeda is saying, so they could exaggerate it. However, they did have about 1,400 in the Hamas attack, so the number is not off from what they did in the first round of attacks.
Is there any indication of what kind of attacks these are going to be? Actually, before we get into that, how old is this information?
I mean, it's ongoing. So the training's already done, right? So all the training info is now old because they trained all the Homeland attackers, if that makes sense. So like next week, you're not going to get info of a Homeland attacker probably at a terrorist camp because it's already done. So all this has been in the last year.
So it's been over a year. It's been a year.
Because this was a continuation, so they planned October 7th first, and then they rolled into planning this after.
Are we next, or is Europe next?
I think the embassy attacks are next, in my opinion.
What are they waiting for the embassies?
I don't think they're waiting. I think it took time to train them. They've now approved them, and they've now moved into the operational stage.
What about the U.S.?
So the U.S., from what we've seen, I told you about the camps, right? That there's the advanced urban warfare. So we think it's going to look like October 7th, but it's actually based on, and October 7th was probably also based on it. It's based on the Mumbai attacks that occurred 15 years ago in Delhi, India. And we believe this for multiple reasons.
What happened there? Before we dig into that.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think it was my first episode. It was basically a terrorist group, Lashkar-e-Taiba. They did a number, it's called swarming attacks. They did a number of attacks into Delhi, at a hotel, the Taj Mahal, I believe it was called, at like basically the train station, etc. The interesting thing about it, and this is why they're going to employ it now, is those terrorists were given kind of like latitude. One, they could change the location they were attacking, and they could change the modus operandi they were using. So for example, when they went into the train station, it was supposed to be a bombing. When they got in there, they said, wow, we can kill more people just shooting them than putting the bomb together, and they shot them. Another thing that they did is in real time, information was being passed to them. So when they were in the Taj Mahal, they were being told what was on the press and what the police were doing, and they changed basically some of their movements in the hotel to make the attack last longer, okay? So this is the part that's going to be different, right? So Al-Qaeda always wants to innovate when it does its next attack, right? So I've already told you about the innovation of the suicide vests. Well, do you know we really haven't had a suicide bombing in the United States ever? There's the Nashville guy who did the strange, blew himself up in the car early in the morning when no one was around. That's kind of it.
The AT&T building?
Yep. So we have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now. You don't have to walk upside of the building. You can walk in the building because of the advancement of the vest. The other thing is, in the United States, we haven't had Fideian attackers. Do you know what this is? I mean, you'll know when I explain it. If you fought in, like, I don't know, Ramadi, Fallujah, you've seen these. So the concept is the terrorist fights to the death. So he's not exactly a suicide bomber, but he will fight till either all of us are dead or all of his people are dead, right? So this can go on for multiple days, like the plan was for Mumbai, for example. So we think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. We think there will be suicide bombings just because some of the attackers went through suicide suicide bomber training and they have these vests, right? And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed. The Fideian matters, right? I was watching, I want to say it was like 8 months ago.
Let me just rephrase that. So these guys are trained, and we already overlaid the video of their training, and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly. And that matters, right? So I was watching this video, and it was a suicide bombing in Kabul years ago. And it was the bomber blew up, okay? And then everyone starts moving in. The first responders move in, right? And then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic, right? But if Americans don't understand this as a tactic and don't understand these attackers are going to fight to the death, think about that. So battle's going on. The attacker surrenders, right? He might have the suicide vest. You know, we let our guard down. That man came to die, right? He's going to fight till he dies or you dies. So we can't let our guards down. And they know our weakness, right? So we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent.
What kind of places do you think they're going to target?
So this is what's complicated. So Al-Qaeda's preference, as you can imagine, is symbols of the U.S. or anything that causes economic damage, right? So Capitol is a great symbol. Capitol was actually I think the Capitol is, a lot of people are targeting it, but the Capitol was in their propaganda just as 9/11 when they were memorializing 9/11, right? So the Capitol matters. I feel like bridges or any kind of public transportation always matters because it puts costs against us and it causes fear. But here's where it gets complicated. So remember, the terrorists might have their goal is they're going to attack the metro in DC, right? But remember, some of these terrorists are going to be ISIS. And remember, they can change location. So the ISIS guy might go down the metro and say, there's not many people down here. I'll kill 20, but there's a event going on. I'm going to go up there, right? And because ISIS is a little different. ISIS just wants mass casualty. So it's going to be interesting how it works with terrorists that came from different backgrounds and when they get choice.
So some of these terrorist organizations are looking for very strategic stuff like U.S. Capitol, basically U.S. governmental infrastructure and elites. And then on the other hand, you have what I'm used to seeing when we were over there. They just look for the easiest, biggest target because they want to kill the most amount of people in the quickest amount of time and get the most press out of it.
Yep.
And so that would lead me to believe universities, churches, stadiums,
farmers markets, those type of things.
How many people, how many fighters do you think we can expect in each attack?
Well, the 1,000 is all of them. So we're calling it's an Al-Qaeda planned attack, but within those 1,000 terrorists, some of them are ISIS because they want ISIS to be blamed. We have a theory on it. I hate to throw out theories. We think the actual
It's the first time I think you've ever thrown out a theory.
I know. I just then people are like, she's crazy. I think the more of the fighter types are going to be ISIS because then if they're caught, then they talk. I'm ISIS. I think more of the suicide bombers are going to be Al-Qaeda.
Will these attacks do you think these attacks will happen simultaneously throughout the United States? Or will they be one day here, next day here, another one over here next week?
So they want them coordinated. I don't know if coordinated means all at the same time or if coordinated means we do it Monday, we do it Tuesday, we do it Wednesday, we do it Thursday, we do it Friday, just do 5 straight days. But they want it coordinated. What's coordinated mean? And the other argument we have, does coordinated also mean U.S. and Europe at the same time? And is Europe all coordinated at the same time? So when they say coordinated, we don't know exactly what that means. So they could also be U.S. and Europe at the same time, which is complicated.
Do you think Europe will see mass casualties, or earlier you kind of mentioned that you think that the primary target in Europe is still U.S. embassies?
No, that's for the wave. So remember, there's a wave of embassy attacks, but then there's this multi-coordinated attack. It's a completely separate wave of attacks. So they're going to get the same October 7th attack in Europe as we're getting in the US, as planned right now anyway. And they also, so 1,000 terrorists were supposedly trained for the US and deployed, and 1,000 were supposedly trained for the Europe attack and deployed. The embassy plots are completely different with completely different trained terrorists.
Man, why haven't they hit yet?
Because the training takes the time. So for
They're
Israel,
here. They're here though.
Supposedly, yeah.
Okay,
They got here.
Let me ask, how long have they been here?
I'm not sure, but if we just do math quick, okay? Israel, they trained 500 terrorists, right? They got a longer timeline, but they were planning to train 500 in 3 months, right? 2 months. So they were going to train 500 in 2 months for Israel. So for Israel, they did it really quick, but it would have been half-assed. They luckily ended up with 1.5 years. But then remember, I told you they had to train 10,000 for Syria. And I think that gets completely ignored, okay? So they have this huge number, and we just saw what the effect of it, right? So the 10,000 for Syria, and some went to Iraq, became the priority. And then we think the homeland attackers were in there. And then that's training's done too, if that makes sense. So they are training for multiple phases at the same time. So it takes time to get through all the training.
Man, this stuff scares the shit out of me. What do you think? Okay, you had mentioned earlier, we just got done talking about the significance of October 7th. How many other dates are there that it could potentially, if they're looking for that kind of, symbology or whatever you want to call it, how many dates are we looking at? Is it too many are there too many significant dates throughout the 20 years that we were over there that we can't, we can't, do you know what I'm trying to say?
I know you're
How
saying.
many dates are we looking at here?
Yeah,
Is it impossible? Is it 365? Is every day of the year after 20 years a potential date? Or are there some specific hard dates that you think that federal, state, local government should be looking at?
Sure. Well, I think if we just talk about the October 7th investigation we did, we actually discussed 3 dates. We discussed the significance of October 7th being the day we started Operation Enduring Freedom. Remember when I said they started training in August? They actually started training on August 7th. They chose August 7th because that was the anniversary of the Tanzania and Kenya embassy bombings, okay? So they did choose even a historic date to start training, okay? And then when you go to 9/11, the majority of Americans, I don't even think the majority of the U.S. government knows why 9/11 was chosen. You'll get these stupid theories. It was start of the school year, or 11 means Allah, or something like that. It comes from 9/11, 1922, and it was basically kind of, after the time of the British Mandate. And that was the first day they basically took a Westerner and said, this Westerner, and he ended up being a British and Jewish, you are in charge of kind of like this Palestinian type of mandate. And Al-Qaeda had cared about a date from 1922, and that's why they chose 9/11 to attack us. So
no matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.